Calder Cup Playoffs are upon us. The Belleville Sens are in and getting set for an historic first-round series starting on Wednesday against the division rival Toronto Marlies. As we welcome you to another episode of the Belleville Sens podcast, Season 2. David Foote and Brock Ormond here. It's episode 21 of our second season of the show, and it comes at a pretty exciting time for the franchise, its staff, players, and fans, as Belleville and Toronto will play a best-of-3 series to begin the Calder Cup playoffs on Wednesday, April 24th. The quick reminder to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. Throw us a rating and review. That'd be fantastic. And season tickets are on sale for 2024-25, but most importantly, playoff tickets are on sale right now. You can head to Ticketmaster.ca or stop by the Belleville Sens box office at CAA Arena and get your tickets to help support the boys in this first-round series. It's going to be exciting, Brock, and we're going to talk some playoffs a little bit later on. We're also going to hear this week from the Senators Players' Choice Award winner. Defenseman Ryan MacKinnon will join us. But before we get into all of that, we have to recap the final 3 games of the season for these Belleville Senators, who have been peaking at the right time, some would say. Belleville winning 3 in a row to finish the season, 8 of 10, Brock, including a couple of big victories over the Laval Rocket to punch the ticket. What an exciting week of hockey it was here in the Bay of Quinte last week.
Absolutely, and especially that Friday game, it was equivalent to Game 7 of the Calder Cup final. That's how big of an atmosphere it was. That's how massive of a game it was. And Igor Sokolov, as we know, he's had his ups and downs this year, but he scores his 20th and 21st goals of the season in the third period to put the Sens tickets, and that's a massive accomplishment for this group because they've worked at it so hard all season, and then on top of that, they get home ice advantage the next night thanks to their win and Toronto's loss. So it really pays to be good against your rivals this season, that's for sure. And the Belleville Sens had a really entertaining game and a really good run to the end of the season as well. 8 out of 10, as you mentioned. The only real blemish was that 8-2 loss against Rochester. But other than that, the Belleville Sens played pretty much as good as you possibly could, and that's the point of basically playing postseason hockey, desperation with 10, 15, 20, even 25 games left in the season. They were playing desperate hockey, and it seemed to pay off for them. But, yeah, what an exciting night. Almost 4,000 in attendance for that game against Laval. Just brilliant way to cap off what has been a really good season. 38 victories in total for the team, and bit of a shaky start. Both Ottawa and Belleville trying to figure out what they had, and David Bell, in his first full season as a Belleville Sens head coach, got his message across quickly, and it really paid off come the stretch. Yeah,
this team was able to find an identity relatively quickly. I think it was inside the first month or two of the season that we knew this wasn't going to be a team that scores 300 goals. We knew this wasn't going to be a team full of 30 or 40 goal scorers, but we did know that this is a team that is never going to quit, that is going to work extremely hard, that's going to play very sound defensively, that's going to get some timely scoring, and that's going to have some outstanding goaltending, not just here and there, but consistently throughout the season. And they were able to play to those strengths, which is something that all of these Senators players do very well, and Dave Bell will attest to that. And not only qualify for the playoffs, but finish in 4th, finish ahead of the Toronto Marlies, finish just behind 3rd place, which ended up being Rochester, right? And it's Syracuse, rather, excuse me. The whole standings jumped so much. And again, the North Division is so competitive. If you really want to look at how good of a season it was for the Belleville Senators, who finished 4th, think about the fact that they finished just 6 points back of first place in the division. And the Cleveland Monsters, the team who finished first, Belleville had their worst inter-division record against Cleveland, but only played them 4 times. So if they had played Cleveland as much as they'd played everybody else, who the heck knows how much messier the standings would have been. But it made for an incredible week of hockey, and really just helping, I think, to get these guys in that mindset of it's the playoffs. It's do or die. If we're not at our best, we're not going to win, and the season's going to be shorter than we want it to be.
That's right, and it was a nice way to cap it off, too, and to think that they were threatening for possibly 2nd or 3rd place, which is incredible to think about. But this division has been so tight all year, so it really pays off for Belleville that they're able to play against those teams like Rochester, like Toronto, Cleveland, Syracuse, Utica, Laval all the time. And that kind of prepares them more so for the postseason when they're going to be playing three of their rivals in the first 3 rounds potentially, depending on how far they get. So that's the biggest thing that the Belleville Senators had was those upper hands. And yeah, the only team that they really did have trouble with in terms of record was the Cleveland Monsters, and they can vanquish all those demons if they can knock out Toronto and then just go into Cleveland and batter them around too, because Cleveland definitely had a shaky mid to late season, and that portion of it definitely wasn't as strong as they were at the start. But Belleville's taken points from them, and they've played them tough. It's not been like Cleveland's dominated the games they played, and this was also back in December was the last time they played. It was up in Cleveland, so definitely a lot different team that we're seeing now as opposed to back in December for the Belleville Sens. So, but they got to get through the Toronto Marlies first, and they had a better record against them, and that's a team that, I mean, no matter how many Toronto blue and white fans come in here to Belleville, no matter how many are in Coca-Cola Coliseum, Belleville just plays the same game, and that is really containing pucks and chipping pucks in and starting to lay the body a little bit, which they really did to the Marlies, and it didn't seem like Toronto really appreciated that too much, and it caused a lot of issues for their more skilled players, which is exactly what the Belleville Sens need for success.
So the Senators round out the 2023-24 regular season with a shootout win at home against Syracuse, a 3-2 win that Brock was talking about on the open against the Laval Rocket. 3-2, the game winner was scored into an empty net. It's such a rare circumstance, but Laval needed to beat Belleville twice in regulation, and when the game was tied late, Jean-François Houle pulls his goaltender, and Igor Sokolov ends up being the hero. You'll hear that clip at the end of this segment as our highlight of the week as well. And then with the season decided, basically, at least who was going to qualify, home ice still up for grabs in the first round. Senators went into Laval on a quick turnaround on Saturday night, came back from one down and silenced a loud building, pick up the 2 points they need, and then they get a little help from Cleveland to beat the Toronto Marlies, and that's how the Senators end up with home ice against their provincial rivals, setting up a first-ever Calder Cup playoff matchup between the AHL affiliate of the Ottawa Senators and the Toronto Maple Leafs, regardless of where they've played. Never mind that this is actually a true Battle of Ontario, which is really cool. And again, we're going to talk more about that coming up later on in the show. Senators, again, they finished fourth with 82 points. It's about the third best, I think, points total that the team has had in its history. And again, a really good campaign. Garrett Pilon ends up overtaking Angus Crookshank as the top scorer by 1 point with 47. Crooker's still the goal-scoring leader for the Sens this year at 24. Pilon with 29 assists. Igor Sokolov's 10 power play goals has him lead that category. Sens scored, they have 6 shorthanded goal scorers on the team. Wyatt Bongiovanni's was while he was in Manitoba. Angus Crookshank, Rourke Chartier, Zach Ostapchuk, Garrett Pilon, Kyle Betts, all scoring shorties for the Sens this season. The top defenseman, and this is just based solely on plus-minus. Dylan Hetherington was named the top defenseman by the players and staff and the team awards, but just based on the plus-minus, Nicholas Montempallo was a plus 15 this season. In his first year playing in North America as technically a rookie in this league, unbelievable season for him, just so steady back there. And again, we talk about the strengths of this team. That is why defense is one of them.
Yeah, and Montempallo was outstanding. We talked about him really giving him his flowers all season, really, but especially in the last maybe month or so, where he really stepped his game up in a big way with Dylan Hetherington injured and also Max Gannett injured. And then in those last 2 games, Lassie Thompson went down injured in the first period against Laval on Friday night, and Nicholas Montempallo just kept gathering ice time and told David Bell to just bring it on. I'll be there for you whenever you need me. And he was out there as part of 5 defense, and he led the corps, to say the least. He was brilliant in that game, got sticks and lanes, and played simple, tough hockey, and it worked out big time for him. And nice to see that plus 15 mark, too. So not only is he good defensively, he's not on the ice for a lot of goals against. He's also on the ice when his team is successful in the offensive end, too, which is so humongous for this team.
14 points and a plus 15 rating for him. 21 points and a plus 14 rating for another true rookie on the blue line in Tyler Clevin, and we've talked a lot about him as well. And one of those guys that with a good camp in Ottawa in the fall might not be here come next season. Also one of those guys who could start here next season and earn a quick call-up. He's been outstanding as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyler Clevin coming from NCAA, too, and you can really emphasize and illustrate how well the NCAA has come along over the last probably 15, 20 or so years when you see a guy like him step right in from being basically a new guy in the NCAA all of a sudden to playing in AHL hockey in pretty big minutes, too. Not sheltered minutes, not playing, 5-10 minutes a night on the 6th or 7th D spot. He's playing pretty regularly and doing really well with it. So he's been just outstanding, and it's a big reason why the Sens have been so successful this year is thanks to guys like him and Mott and Paul that have really stepped in and been key contributors for this group. Another
big reason the Sens have been successful this season is Matt Sogard. A career year for him in terms of goals against and save percentage. Played just a few games less than he did last year and had one or two less wins as well. But heading into the playoffs, probably the one key factor, I think, for the Belleville Senators. Maybe not as Sogard go the Senators, but it's certainly going to have an impact.
Yeah, Sogard was the big reason why the Sens, one of the big reasons at least, why the Sens got to this point, gaining home ice advantage after making the postseason. He was stellar, and there's a couple of times where it looked like things were getting a little dicey in the defensive end, but Matt Sogard was there to step in and make some big-time stops. That leaping save he made off Valtteri Morel, I always look back to that on Wednesday night against Syracuse. That was pretty much, I don't know if I want to say the season saver, but it felt like it. It certainly did when he dove across and made that stop with the score tied at 1 in a tight game where you think if that puck goes in, Syracuse likely wins because of how tight it was and how Belleville was having a tough time getting some offense going at points in that game. So that's the type of save that you don't have to make it all the time, but certainly if it's in the arsenal in that chamber, then you can bring it out when need be. But Matt Sogard has been just the calm and steady presence that Belleville has had for the last couple years in net. Him, Kevin Mandolese, and Levi Maroline, a great trio this year for Belleville.
So that's what we think about the Belleville Sens season in a nutshell. Let's hear from head coach Dave Bell. This is not his season-ending press conference per se, but his post-game comments after the final regular season game in Laval on Saturday night. Finish off the season on a 3-game winning streak, playing some pretty good hockey. How did you feel about the game tonight first?
Well, obviously it wasn't the start we needed, but that's tricky coming off an extremely emotionally high win the night before and then getting in here pretty late. But you know what, Levi Maroline kept us in it, found our legs, found some structure, and then had a big third period.
You go without 5 of your key players, obviously get some guys some rest, but what does that say about your team to have the depth guys come through and do enough to get the job done tonight?
Well, I think that's been the story all year, whether it's call-ups or injuries. We've called upon these guys all year to have big games, and again, Karen Pfizer had a big game tonight. I thought Sabrango and MacKinnon were really good on the back end. So, you know what, we've had that mentality all year, and we have faith and trust in anybody that's inside that locker room when they go over the boards that they're going to get the job done.
Wyatt Bongiovanni has been a really impactful player for your group since joining from Manitoba. What is it about his game that has made him fit in so well?
Well, I think his hockey IQ is very high. He knows where to go on the ice. He knows what his strengths are, so he puts himself in positions to use his strengths, and obviously it's his shot and being able to take pucks to the net. So he's been a real nice addition. He's fitting in nice on that line.
Just wanted to get a thought on Thomas Hamara as well. Makes his AHL debut tonight. What did you think of his game?
That's good. He was very good. I thought he moved the puck well. I thought he had some good composure in traffic in our end. And again, that's another guy that gets to make his American Hockey League debut in Laval in front of 10,500. So I thought he composed himself well and had a very good first showing.
All right, bus ride home and then a couple of days before the playoffs start. How do you refocus and prepare these guys for a playoff run? Some guys for the first time.
It's just, you know what, we've played Toronto enough that we know what we have to do. We just have to tighten everything up. We tighten up our systems and get guys feeling good, get some line combinations going that they can get some chemistry and just get ourselves as much rest and as energized as we can for Wednesday night.
Nice to have home ice advantage in that first round?
I think it's huge. It gets us the hard matches and it's our fans there for us in Game 1 and Game 3 if we need it, so very good.
All right, maybe just lastly, Game 72 in the books. How would you sum up this season for the Belleville Senators?
I think it was adversity was a lot. It was probably the best word you could use for it. Guys getting injured, guys getting called up, going through some changes up top. So we had to do some transitioning down here with coaches and players. But I would say they're a very, very resilient group. And to finish 10 games over 500 in fourth place with home ice is a successful regular season.
There's head coach Dave Bell, and adversity was the word he used, Brock. We talked about that all season long as well, and on this last three-game stretch, the team's dealt with a little bit more of that with how many defenders they've had out. They had to play, as you mentioned the other day, with no Dylan Hetherington, no Max Gannett, no Lassie Thompson, and guys like Martin Paulo, who we mentioned, Donovan Sabrango, who Coach mentioned, and even young Thomas Amara, who makes his AHL debut in Laval, all stepping up, and that's been the mindset of this entire team all season long. That's been the attitude of this team all season long, and that's going to be something that needs to continue, but will also be a huge benefit to this club as we head into the Calder Cup playoffs this week.
Certainly, and like I said, David Bell's had his system in place right from day one of training camp when Belleville first came on board, and everybody got together, congregated. David Bell made his message known right off the bat, and certainly it seems to have really helped the Belleville Sens because it's been a great season, and the coach has put himself in and his team in a good spot to try and go a long ways this season because the Sens have had a great year.
More on the playoff push, or the playoff run, I should say, to come in our third segment of the show. When we come back, we'll chat with the Senators' Players' Choice Award winner, the Maritimer. Ryan MacKinnon will join us after this. We leave you with our highlight of the week for this segment, and that's the Igor Sokolov buzzer beater. It's the most exciting empty netter you'll ever hear as the Sens clinch home ice in the first round of the playoffs.
The Highmore, he's going to shoot and hit the post. Sokolov tries, he scores! Sokolov scores into the empty net. The Sens are going to win in regulation time, and Belleville is headed back to the Calder Cup Playoffs.
What a comeback. Can you hear the passion here at CAA Arena? That was the death knell for the Laval Rocket, and the Belleville Sens are going to pull it out. Can you believe it?
Stay ahead of the game. Plan now for the next season of Belleville Senators hockey. 2024-25 renewals and new seat packages are on sale now. Visit BellevilleSens.com to receive information on pricing and learn about the exclusive benefits season seat members receive. Because you want to be in on all Sens hockey action. Plan to get in the game. More on season seat memberships at BellevilleSens.com. Go Sens, go!
You're listening to episode number 21 of the Belleville Sens podcast, season 2. David Foote, Brock Ormond here. And as we continue on in the build-up to the Calder Cup playoffs, which begin Wednesday, April 24th at CAA Arena. Tickets at Ticketmaster.ca or BellevilleSens.com. Sens and Marlies in a Battle of Ontario in that best-of-3 first round. Game 2 is in Toronto on Friday, the 26th of April. Game 3, if necessary, back in Belleville at 3 p.m. on Sunday, the 28th. It's going to be an exciting series. We're going to break it down for you a little bit coming up in our final segment. But in our feature interview segment this week, we're going to check in with the Belleville Sens Players' Choice Award winner, Ryan MacKinnon, who is in his first season with Belleville, signed as one of those veteran players that could help to add some leadership and help with attitude, etc., in the dressing room. And he did exactly that this year, Brock. A guy who didn't play a pile, as a veteran player. He only got into 29 games for the Sens this season, 3 assists on the campaign, but he was just such an important piece of this club as a whole. Whether it's, the attitude, whether it's him jumping in to play forward on a couple of occasions because the team needed bodies, whatever it is, Ryan MacKinnon was always more than happy to oblige his teammates, and really it's no surprise to see him named as the club's Player Choice Award winner.
Yeah, that's exactly it. When you are the type of guy that'll do anything for your team, like you said, playing forward as a defenseman, it's not your natural position. Naturally, it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, but then you go in there, and just to get into the lineup is just the type of thing that Ryan MacKinnon will do anything for the team. And yeah, David Bell asked it of him, and some guys wouldn't be as comfortable doing that. They'd say, well, I don't want to play forward when I'm so used to perfecting my craft as a defenseman and learning from all the other defensemen in the team and not being used to it. No, he goes in there and says, yeah, what do you want of me? Because I'll do it. And Ryan MacKinnon, just to be able to say he's in the lineup and contributing at some point for his team is something that he just wants to do. And even when he got in there late in the season, he never looked out of step on defense. He played pretty well as part of that five-man unit for much of the game on Friday as well. But funny you mentioned, David, how he hasn't played a whole lot this year. But 29 games is his highest in the American Hockey League.
I was just looking at that. Yeah, I had to catch myself. He hasn't played a lot in the grand scheme of this club per se, but
exactly.
Yeah, big year for him actually getting in a lot of games.
Yeah, 3 assists too, 29 games. That ties a career high from last year at the Bridgeport Islanders. He also spent time at the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, 25 games in the 21-22 season, so that was his previous high. So he broke that this year, still under 100 games in the American Hockey League, but he is a Bulldog, and he's given himself a good effort to try and make this team and be a contributor. And it may be a case of he might have to shift to being a 6th or 7th guy once a guy like Max Gannett gets back, but certainly the type of guy that will do anything. He'll go through a wall for you. That's the thing I think of. And talking to Ryan MacKinnon at the beginning of the season as well, he just comes from such a humble East Coast background. He truly is humble. Some players, other players outside of teams may have more confidence than they're letting on, but this guy is truly a humble East Coast boy, and he's a true team guy, and he's a family type of guy too. So that's what helps him succeed in this type of family environment with the Belleville Sens.
And all of that will shine through in this interview with the 29-year-old from Summerside, PEI, Ryan MacKinnon, our feature guest on Season 2, Episode 21 of the Belleville Sens podcast. Congrats on the award, first of all. What's the reaction to receiving that kind of recognition from your teammates?
Yeah, I was blindsided by it. Obviously put a big smile on my face. It just says how close our dressing room is. I mean, the amount of votes that a lot of players got just shows how close of a group we are, and obviously the last stretch, it shows how resilient we are. And before every game, we talk about how it's too good of a group to end this early, so we got the playoff push done last night, and looking forward here now.
Yeah, it's absolutely nice to have that lockdown to relax a little bit today anyway. How would you describe your season overall? Obviously, I'm sure you haven't played maybe as much as you'd like, but playing that role as a key guy in the dressing room, what's the year been like for you?
Yeah, it's definitely been a success. I mean, especially in this league, you've no control over your ice time, over the rosters. There's so many moving parts with obviously Ottawa and then here, and I over the years, I just learned that the only things I can control is, my work ethic and how I am as a teammate. And I feel like I did that to the way I could this year. And any way the team needed me to help out to get wins done, I felt I did that. So it's and then obviously when the team makes playoffs, it's success for everybody. So it's been great.
Yeah, obviously you've been a guy who's kind of jumped in and out. Been called upon at different times. How do you kind of stay ready to get in the lineup when called upon, if it's not as regular as you'd maybe like?
Yeah, that's a testament to the staff here. The coaching staff, the training staff, they do a tremendous job in keeping everybody ready. Like I said, there's so many moving parts. There's been so many times the roster's been set in the morning and then you get a different roster at night. So, the staff's done a tremendous job in keeping everybody ready. And like you said, even different positions. They keep everybody on their toes with everybody's jobs on the ice, and I can't thank them enough for that.
We're chatting with Sens defenseman Ryan MacKinnon. You never want to see your teammates go down, get injured. Obviously, the defense is pretty depleted right now, and it's leading to you getting some increased minutes at a pretty critical time of the season. How fun is it to be able to play a part in this team's success in April? Yeah,
it's been great. I mean, anytime you're not playing much, you don't know when you're going to get back in, and then all of a sudden, 2-3 D-men go down, you're right in the thick of it. So especially during our big playoff push, I was glad that we went in there, we got the job done, and everybody was ready to compete. And, like I said, the roster changed so much that it's nice that everybody stayed ready, and we got the job done.
We've had some quiet nights at CAA Arena, to say the least, this season, but last night was not one of those. It was electric, and I think Igor Sokolov's celebrations kind of really told the tale of the atmosphere, etc. What was kind of the reaction to the support from last night, and maybe to watching Igor go off at the end of the game?
Yeah, I think his post-game interview talked a lot for itself, but Belleville's craving playoff hockey. Like you said, there's so many home games, so much going on. It's hard to fill your rink every single night, but you can tell come crunch time here, playoff time, they're craving playoff hockey, and it was a great atmosphere last night, and they definitely helped us get that win.
Yeah, I always try to reinforce to people that you're not just there yelling and screaming watching a hockey game. When the crowd gets involved, it really can have an impact.
Yeah, absolutely, and they showed it last night. I mean, Laval is obviously a passionate fan group, and they brought their faithful there, and our Sens fans were louder and created a great atmosphere, and so Soko definitely fed off that, and we got the job done.
How exciting is it to be in the Calder Cup playoffs and know the season's extended here?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, every team works towards that throughout the year. It's not a guarantee as well. You look at our division, it's so tight. We've gone on streaks this year where we're looking at first place, and then all of a sudden you lose a couple games, and you're in the basement of the division. So it's nice to finally get that X beside your name and gearing up for playoffs.
And with that parity, I think for the group, it kind of seems like you're right in the fight. You guys must have the belief that you can go as far as you want this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been playing playoff hockey here as of late. We haven't had a choice. Whereas you look at other divisions, there's quite a few points that separate the top from the bottom. But in our division, it's so close. We haven't had a choice but to play playoff hockey. So we definitely believe in this group. We're definitely excited to get going here.
Yeah, and how do you kind of approach this game tonight, where you don't need to clinch, but a couple points could make a difference in terms of home ice in the first round?
Yeah, there's always stuff up for grabs. You always want to continue playing with your good habits, especially going into playoffs. You don't want to stray too far away from that, so we're going to go in, work as hard as we can, and get the job done.
Should be fun. We're looking forward to that and to some playoff hockey in the Friendly City as well. Ryan MacKinnon is the Sens Players' Choice Award winner. Thanks again for the time. Congrats again, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, Ryan MacKinnon, great guy. He's been doing everything that is asked of him for this team this season, and nice to see him get an opportunity to get back, Calder Cup playoffs for the first time, and that's something that we're going to discuss when we come back here on Season 2, Episode 21 for our final segment as we tee up the Calder Cup playoffs, the first-round series against Toronto. It's a lot of inexperienced players for Belleville in terms of how many AHL playoff games they've had. I don't know how much it's going to matter, but we'll discuss that and some more on the Calder Cup playoffs when we come back. It's the Belleville Sens podcast on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network.
Don't miss 1 second of Belleville Senators action this season. The Belleville Sens Entertainment Network is the only place to hear live coverage of the Belleville Senators for all 72 games plus playoffs. Pre-game coverage begins 15 minutes before each game with David Foote, and the network is also home to the Belleville Sens podcast, the Belleville Senators Entertainment Network, presented by Deer Haven Farm and Garden. Tune in on the Belleville Sens app or BellevilleSens.com.
Season number 2, episode 21 of the Belleville Sens podcast, the final regular season-related episode of the 23-24 campaign. Everything from here on out, this segment included, is nothing but Calder Cup playoff talk as the Senators will open their best-of-3 first-round North Division series against the division rival Toronto Marlies on Wednesday, April 24th at CAA Arena. Again, Game 2. Friday the 26th at Coca-Cola Coliseum in Toronto. Game 3 if needed, Sunday the 28th. Back here at CAA Arena, you can get tickets for all those games at Ticketmaster. And, of course, for the games here at CAA Arena by visiting the box office. Box office hours are available at BellevilleSens.com. David Foote and Brock Ormond here. Thanks again to Ryan MacKinnon for his time back in Laval on the weekend to chat about his season and his Player's Choice Award win. But now, Brock, we turn our attention to what everybody's been looking forward to all season long, what these guys have been busting their butts for the last 3.5 to 4 weeks to get into the Calder Cup playoffs. It's here. It's time, and boy, are we ever looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a fun time of year for sure, and the Belleville Sens certainly deserve this because they've worked their tails off, like you said, getting 38 wins during the regular season and 82 points and putting themselves in a spot to win. And obviously, the game against, or the series against Rochester from 2 years ago, 2022, was a great series. Unfortunately, it didn't end the way Belleville wanted, so they're still looking for that first win. But I truly believe that the Belleville Sens can have it coming to them against the Toronto Marlies. They're going to give them a good fight, the Marlies will, but the Belleville Sens deserve every little bit of success and adoration that's coming to them. And saw a stat from, or I saw an anecdote from our resident AHL historical guru, Patrick Williams, that said the first Battle of Ontario in the AHL, so the second total, but the first since 1994. So that was 30 years ago, Cornwall and Hamilton. So you want to talk about a long, long time ago. Cornwall doesn't have an AHL team anymore. Hamilton doesn't have an AHL team anymore. It's just these guys, Belleville and Toronto. And so they're making history, like you said earlier, and it should be an absolute ride.
It really should. Again, Belleville finishes 4th. Toronto finishes 5th. Belleville sends 2 points up on the Toronto Marlies at the end of the season. Senators had a really good campaign against Toronto, to say the least. 6-3, 0-1 on the year this year, and that's improving from a 4-7, 0-1 record last season against the Marlies. And, again, a lot of that has to do with the Senators' work ethic. They are kind of clutch gene, if you will. A couple of overtime wins in Toronto against the Marlies. And, again, everybody who plays for the Senators loves to play against Toronto. Everybody who plays for Toronto loves to play against the Senators. It's going to be really exciting, and I like the matchup. This is a Toronto team that can score goals. They can be fast, and they can be a little scary at times. But as Dave Bell said in the post-game comments there that you heard in the other segment, as long as they tighten things up, they should be fine because they've seen Toronto 10 times already. There are no secrets between these two clubs.
No, not at all. And obviously David Bell and John Gruden, two very well experienced, well-versed coaches in professional and just overall hockey. They're both smart minds, and they know what it takes to outduel the other. And it should be an entertaining series because these two teams have played some great games against each other, very close. There's only maybe 1 or 2 games this year that were really blowouts or games that were out of hand. But the Sens, yeah, they're a team that doesn't score a whole lot, like you said. They've only scored 6 goals a few times this year, haven't scored more than that. So this kind of tends to fit these short series, these best-of-3 series, best-of-5s as well. They tend to fit the Belleville Sens makeup a little bit more because they're a team that has grinded out 2-1 and 3-2 games all season, and they've got the group that can do it again. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind they can. The Marlies obviously can't take them lightly because they're a really good team. They got a lot of depth, a lot of players from the Maple Leaf system, and it should be interesting to see the cat and mouse game that develops between these two teams. I don't imagine you're going to see a whole ton of feeling out process in the first maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes of game 1, but I would imagine that you're going to see a lot of hitting, a lot of banging, a lot of fighting and scratching and clawing to get in front of those nets and try and bother the goaltenders a bit. Mads Sogard, I imagine, should get the start for game 1 for Belleville. Toronto's got a stable full of good goaltenders, though, to throw out there.
Yeah, my guess for game 1, if I had to take a guess right now, 24 hours or so before, I'd go Sogard-Hildeby, likely. We'll see what the two coaches decided. A couple things you mentioned there, Brock. One, the tightness of the series. 7 of 10 games in the season series, 1-goal games. 8 of 10 were 2 goals or less, and then the other 2, I think one was a 4-goal difference, and one was the one game you can write off from the whole season series when Belleville got blanked 8-0. Ryan Turberg had a gigantic afternoon, and that's one that we kind of wash out when you look at the season series. But it's been extremely close. 4 games have gone to overtime, 1 going further to the shootout. So, again, the Belleville Senators style that they've played all season long lends well to playoff hockey, and I think they've got an advantage in that sense. But again, anything can happen. You mentioned the roster for Toronto, too. That will be really intriguing to watch because Toronto's got a bunch of players up from Newfoundland as well. And John Gruden will basically be able to pick and choose who he wants to slide in when. Should guys get hurt, they're going to have lots of reinforcements. Now, should say, the Senators' injured list is shrinking. We haven't had full confirmation on who is available and who is healthy again. We do know Angus Crookshank was reassigned from the NHL, which means he's likely healthy because you can't be reassigned while you're hurt. So getting Angus Crookshank back would be an extremely big boost for this team heading into to that series. So it's not that Belleville doesn't have personnel. They just don't have the abundance of players as the Toronto Marlies have.
Yeah, but they've got the guys there that can fill in well and battle like they have been all season, and getting Crookshank back would really help the offense. The offense has been, like I said, there, but again, one of the lower scoring teams in the North, so they're okay with grinding out those low scoring games. But a guy like Angus Crookshank can be that game breaker, ice breaking type of player that can mean the difference between a first round series win and potentially being knocked out early. So Crookshank, great to have him back. And Boko Amama, too, is another one that came back. He's going to be prime for these types of playoff games. I mean, he's a guy that can throw his weight around with the best of them. Same with Garrett Pilon. Same with Martin Paulo. Cleven's done it a bunch. The K-Train nickname doesn't come for nothing. So Belleville Sens have an abundance of players that are good enough to fill the roles and to not only that, but to exceed all expectations this year.
Among the top players for Belleville against Toronto this year, Igor Sokolov had 12 points in 10 games, so look for him to be impactful. This was a wild stat. For a guy who didn't play for most of the season, Roby Yarvetti had 7 points in 5 games against the Marlies before he got hurt. He would have been just lighting them up for the rest of the campaign. Obviously, he's not available. Jacob Larson, Tyler Cleven, Josh Curry, Matt Highmore, all guys who had really good seasons against Toronto. For the Marlies, Kyle Clifford and Topi Niemela, highest point getters against Belleville this season. Kiefer Bellows has been a bit of a pain, as has Alex Steeves, as he always is. Mentioned Ryan Turberg had that one big game against the Senators. So, again, both these teams have the depth. They have the goaltending. They have the work ethic. I give the Senators the edge in a lot of those categories. And, again, I don't call them favorites by any means as the number 4 seed. I don't think anybody in any series in the North Division can be considered a favorite because of how tight it is. But I do like Belleville's chances if they play against Toronto the way they have been all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree, too. I fully believe that Belleville can pull out a victory. And again, the home ice advantage certainly helps. It doesn't always is not always bulletproof, but the Belleville Sens have the ability to pack the house, and we know there's going to be Toronto fans here, but you just got to drown them out, and the fans did a great job of that on Friday night, in particular with the Laval fans really getting loud, getting that Go Sens Go chant, drowning them right out. So home ice advantage will mean even more than you'd expect going into this third best-of-3 play-in series, and the Belleville Sens and Toronto Marlies have played in some really good games, and the Sens, they have the ability to win, absolutely, but you can't, again, like we say, overlook the Marlies because they are such a good team. Of course, the Maple Leafs, one of the class organizations of the NHL. The Marlies have been great as well, so looking forward to seeing everybody, even the Ottawa fans, jumping on the bandwagon for Belleville. It's going to be a real exciting time, and looking forward to see if Belleville can oust the Marlies and play potentially the Cleveland Monsters, which would be a very interesting series as well, but they got to deal with priority number 1, and that's beating the Marlies in what should be, I would say, one of the best series of the first round.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun again. Tickets at Ticketmaster.ca or the Belleville Sens box office. We want a loud and proud CAA arena to help knock out the Toronto Marlies in round 1. The other round 1 series in the other divisions, the Atlantic, Wilkes-Barre and Lehigh Valley. Winner goes on to play Hershey. Charlotte and Hartford. Winner goes on to play Providence. In the Pacific Division, it's Tucson against Calgary, Ontario against Bakersfield, Colorado against Abbotsford. Coachella Valley finished first in that division. They get a bye. The winners of those first-round series will reseed, and then they'll determine the matchups. And then the Central Division is pretty similar to ours. Texas and Manitoba, 4-5. Winner of that series plays Milwaukee. The other series is Grand Rapids and Rockford. Of course, in our division, the other series is Rochester and Syracuse, another rivalry battle there. just over the border. So lots more playoffs to talk about. Hopefully when we talk next week, it's about the Belleville Sens moving into the next round of the Calder Cup Playoffs. Regardless of how this weekend goes, we'll be back with episode number 22 next week, and we hope you'll join us for that. Again, playoff tickets, Ticketmaster.ca, BellevilleSens.com, CAA Arena box office. We hope to see you here. For Brock Ormond, David Foote, thanking you as always for listening. We'll talk to you next week on the Belleville Sens podcast.